We've all been there, right? Life throws its challenges at you, and your first gut instinct is to just run, get away from it all. But what if there's a totally different way to handle things? In this explainer, we're going to dive into two really profound paths for facing life's biggest hurdles. One is the path of escape, and the other is the path of awakening.
This quote right here really sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. It paints this incredible picture. Our desires, our fears, our ambitions, they're like a tiger. And our natural reaction? It's to find a cave, a safe place to hide. This is where our whole journey begins.
I mean, let's be real for a second. Life can be tough. It can be exhausting. The constant stream of problems can wear you down until you just feel defeated. So wanting to escape? That's probably one of the most natural feelings in the world. But running away doesn't really solve anything, does it?
The source material has a pretty powerful name for this type of person: a refugee from life. Now, this isn't just about avoiding some chore you don't want to do. This is a person who genuinely believes that if they can just put enough physical distance between themselves and their problems, those problems are solved. But what they don't realize is that they're missing out on all the growth that comes from actually facing those challenges. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Look at how we tend to glorify this path of escape. We see someone who has renounced the world, and we might call them a saint, a holy man, but the source gives us a much more direct, unfiltered reality check. What we see as a saint, the source calls a refugee. What we see as a holy man, it calls a coward. And an ascetic, well, maybe they're just a patient in need of healing, not someone to be put on a pedestal. So the whole logic of the escapist, it's fundamentally flawed. It's a myth. And to show us exactly why, the source gives us this beautiful little story, a parable about a cave that spent its entire life terrified of the sun. Okay, so imagine this cave. For thousands, maybe millions of years, it's been hiding in its own darkness, totally afraid of the sun. But one day, it gets just a little bit curious. It peeks outside and is just floored. It's awestruck by the light, by all the life out there. So it invites the sun in, but it's worried. It asks the sun, but what are you going to do about all my darkness? I have so much of it. And when the sun's rays finally entered, the darkness wasn't fought. It wasn't pushed out. It just wasn't there anymore. It vanished. So here's the crucial moral of that story. Darkness isn't a thing. You can't hold it. You can't fight it. It's just the absence of light. And in exactly the same way, the source says that all those worldly desires, that tiger that we're so busy running from, it's not some monster we have to battle. It's simply the absence of our own inner awareness.
And this brings us to the absolute core message, the huge turning point in this whole philosophy. The advice isn't to run faster or find a better cave. The advice is don't run, awaken. Instead of fleeing from the tiger of desire, we're urged to turn inward and simply switch on the light.
So what happens when we do that, when we awaken? Do we become these fragile, delicate people hiding away? No way. We become what the source calls a man-lion, a being that embodies immense inner strength, pure consciousness, and true courage. And just look at the difference between these two paths. It's night and day. The escapist is always running from desire, seeing it as this terrifying tiger. But the awakened man-lion, they're free from desire. They look at that same problem and see it as a big, clumsy elephant that's actually running away from them. The challenge on the outside is the same, but the state on the inside changes absolutely everything. You might be wondering, how is a shift that big even possible? Well, it all starts when we realize that our desires aren't always what they appear to be. A lot of the time, they're like shadows. Their size and shape depend entirely on the light. And there's another brilliant little story that illustrates this perfectly. So picture a fox at sunrise. The sun is low, so the fox sees its own shadow stretching way out in front of it, looking huge and imposing. It thinks to itself, wow, I am magnificent. For breakfast today, I'm going to need a whole camel. But as the morning goes on, the sun gets higher and higher in the sky, and the fox's shadow gets smaller and smaller. By high noon, the shadow is practically gone, and the fox looks down and thinks, you know what, an ant would be just fine. And isn't that just like us? Our ego, our desires, they can feel enormous in the dim light of morning, demanding these huge, grand things for fulfillment. But when we shine that high noon sun of self-awareness right down on them, they shrink back to their true size, which, a lot of the time, is pretty small. Now, this leads to a really common trap that so many of us fall into. We look at people who seem to have inner peace, and we notice they're also very disciplined. And so we assume that their discipline must be what caused their peace.
So what do? We try to force ourselves to be disciplined, hoping we'll get the same result.
But the source says, nope, you've got it completely backward. Inner awareness, that's the cause. That calm, effortless discipline we admire in others, that's just the effect of that awareness. The peace has to come first, and then the discipline follows naturally, without any strain at all.
Trying to force discipline when you don't have that inner light, well, is totally useless. It's all motion with zero substance. And you guessed it, there's another fantastic story from the source that just captures this idea perfectly.
So there's this signal man, and he's in court because there was a near miss at a railway crossing. On the stand, he just insists over and over again, I waved the lantern, I waved it vigorously. He's so convincing that he actually wins the case. Afterwards, his boss comes up to him, super impressed, and says, wow, you were so brave and confident up there. And the signalman leans in and says, confident? I was just terrified the whole time that the lawyer was going to ask me if the lantern was actually lit.
And that is the whole point right there. He did the action, he waved the lantern, but the one thing that actually mattered, the light, was missing. And that is exactly the problem with forced self-control. You can go through all the right motions on the outside, but if that inner light of awareness isn't on, it's all for nothing.
So if forced discipline isn't the goal, then what is? It's freedom. Real freedom. And this isn't about just indulging every single desire, and it's not about suppressing every impulse either. It's about living your life fully and completely, but with this deep, constant, unshakable awareness.
And this state of being isn't some super complicated, mystical thing you have to achieve. It's actually a return to a profound simplicity. The awakened person just lives. They see what's in front of them. They hear the sounds around them. Every little action is complete in and of itself, totally free from any kind of inner struggle or conflict.
This kind of freedom brings a childlike quality back into your life. And I don't mean childish, I mean childlike. It's that ability to live right here, right now, without being crushed by the weight of past regrets or future anxieties. It's a state of just pure, simple being.
When you really boil it all down, the path you end up walking depends entirely on what you believe yourself to be. And this isn't some new age idea. This is a timeless truth you can find in almost every spiritual tradition. Your core belief about who you are is what creates your reality.
And that brings us right back to the beginning. If you believe deep down that you're weak, that the tiger of desire is just too powerful for you, then you will live your life as a refugee. But if you stand up and declare that you are the master of your own inner world, that is how you awaken the lion.
So the final question really is for you, something to think about. When you're faced with life's challenges, whether they're big or small, which path are you choosing? Are you running from the tiger, or are you awakening the lion?